Hey, YouTube. How's everybody doing? I get asked very often what would be the top things that a dog should know. Before I get into this, let me just say that I personally believe you should teach your dog as many things as you can. In fact, there is no cap on what you can teach a dog. I had a little chat with Stanley Coren, and he is the author of the book, The Intelligence of Dogs. He is a psychologist who studies animal behavior of all types, animals like dogs and anything from crows and cats and whatever, and humans, all animals. So Dr. Coren studies the intelligence of dogs, and he said the average adult dog knows 125 words. So we all know, and we have all heard about, the amazing, usually a border collie who knows like 300 words, 400 words, whatever. They know all these words and they can differentiate from different toys by name and all that. So, yeah, there are dogs that can learn. There is no cap to it. The dogs can learn a high capacity depending on what you want to teach them. But having said that, given the fact that, listen to this statistic, you guys, only or less than 10% of all households that own dogs in the United States, what I'm talking about right now, only 10% of U.S. dog owning homes participate in any type of professional dog training. Yeah, that's such a small number, right? Now, this is not to say that people don't train their dogs on their own. Absolutely, they do. But is it really formal? Is it really a, consistent program where they're, systematically going through all these behaviors to teach their dog? Probably not. Probably not. That has not been my experience. And you guys, if you're really honest and you think about all the dogs you know, and that counts your dogs in your own family, neighbors' dogs, coworkers' dogs, dogs that you meet when you're out and about in the street. What do they know? And what are people teaching them? Let's be honest, probably not a lot. So again, I think in the interest of wanting to narrow it down to just a very, very small list of things that people can focus on. Look, if you can just focus on these, like, let's say three. It's a very small number, right? And that's something that people might go, yeah, three things? Yeah, I can totally do that. I could totally teach my dog three things, right? So if you wanted to narrow it down to a small list of three, what I like to call non-negotiables, the three things that every dog should know in order to get through life in a safe way, right? Because there's so many things that you can teach a dog. But what are three things that they absolutely positively should know? Now, me putting out this information, other dog trainers don't like that, right? And I probably really shouldn't like that because we make our living by having people learn, teach their dogs all these things, right? So if we're encouraging people like, you don't really, your dog would be fine without knowing all that. Just three things. Most dog trainers don't want me to tell you that, but it's true. And I don't really feel bad or feel like that I'm taking any money out of dog trainers' pockets because, like I said, only 10% of the, dog owning population utilize professional dog services anyway. And generally, you all know this is true, that most people won't even seek a dog trainer unless their dog is doing something bad, or the dog is doing something annoying, or the dog is doing something dangerous, something that they need fixed right now. People don't generally just take their dog for training because it's good for them, or take their dog to training to improve their confidence, or, train their dog to have fun with them. Those are all the reasons I think people should choose to train their dogs. But, I know that isn't it, and that has not been my experience. Usually the dog is on the short list to, you know, no longer have a home. And then the owners bring them and say, fix my dog. That's more often how it happens. But I digress. Let me get back to narrowing it down to 3 things that your dog, if you teach your dog and you concentrate on these 3 things only, you have a pretty good dog. You'll have a dog that would live life safely and be pretty manageable. And I'm talking about a normal dog that doesn't have any severe behavior issues. You're just everyday average dog. 3 things. So before I get to the 3 things that I feel, I do want to let you know that there are probably things that you're not even thinking about, right? They're not the common things. They're not the common commands, as people like to call them, or I call them behaviors. They're not the normal behaviors that people think of, and when you have your, to-do list of what you want your dog to learn. So, but it's not just you guys as dog owners. I also put out a poll, a survey to just a random list of dog trainers that I knew and asked them what their top 3 things are. And you know what? Very few of them said the things that I would pick. Now, the list was all over the place. It was all over the place. But there was one thing that I feel is the most important thing, and it was absent from most of the lists. And I was shocked. I was shooketh, as they say, because people weren't even thinking about that. They were thinking of your regular run-of-the-mill things, which I'll just throw out there to you. Leash walking was on a whole bunch of things. Leash walking is not on mine. Bunch of people said place, go to place, or teaching relaxation skills, teaching sits and down. A lot of people had sits and downs. A lot of people had leave it. A lot of people had drop it. A lot of people had recall. Yeah. So, yeah, it was all over the place. It was all over the place. So, what is the number or the top 3 things? Well, guess what? I'm going to start with one thing that if you worked on this one thing with your dog, everything else would fall into place. And what is that one thing? The relationship. Because a lot of people expect a relationship with their dog to just be automatic. You got a dog, you feed them, you attempt to take them out on walks and exercise them, and the relationship is just going to fall in place. Well, let me ask you, what relationship do you not have to work on? So for those of you who are adults here, what relationship, and listen, I am in no way saying that dogs are human or are like humans or have human characteristics. They have similarities, but dogs are dogs. They are dogs. They are the canine animal, and humans are humans. However, a relationship, and you can go look up the definition of relationship. Relationship is not just the connection between people, humans. A relationship is a connection between any 2 things. Any 2 things. It can be concepts. It could be places. It could be human to human. And it could also be human to animal. Really, it's just, like I said, it is the connection. The kind of the way in which the 2 things are connected. That's more of what the definition of relationship is. So if that's the case, what you have, the connection you have with your dog is a connection, for sure. Well, listen, if you have a not only just a bond, but a strong bond, a reliance on each other, a working partnership with each other, a team with each other, a yin and yang with each other, with your dog and you, they're going to pretty much do whatever you want. Now, some of you might be shaking your heads now. No, I have a good relationship with my dog and they don't. But you know what? Do you? Do you? Because, and the reason I'm asking you this is because a lot of people think they do, but it hasn't been tested. And again, think about any relationship that you've been in, particularly a long-standing relationship. What relationship have you not had to work on in order to continue to nurture that relationship and continue to keep that relationship tight and bonded? I've been married for a long time. And let me just say, and any people who have been married and are no longer married because they had to split up, they will tell you as well. You cannot just put a marriage on autopilot. You can't. You ever heard of that term, how people say they grew apart? Well, grew apart, what that usually means is that in that relationship, that marriage, that partnership, that means they put it on autopilot. And yeah, people grow. People change through the years. And they put it on autopilot and thought it was just going to keep on continuing and being fulfilling because, they were not putting more, if it was a bank, they were not putting more money into the bank. They were just depleting money out of the bank. And then after several years of growth and change, which is normal, there was nothing there. There was nothing left in the bank anymore. So pretty much every therapist would advise, that relationship therapists say, would advise that you got to keep putting money in that bank. You got to keep on filling up the tank. You got to. Because if not, it's going to end up empty. Well, what makes people think that the relationship with their dog is any different? What makes people think that? So, there's going to be another, I'll have to do another post on how you fill up that tank or put money in the relationship bank with your dog. That will be a post for another day because that's a whole thing. But let's just suffice to say, when you have a healthy, thriving, nurturing, self-fulfilling, mutually fulfilling, mutually respectful relationship with whomever or whatever, when you have that, pretty much everything does fall into place. For instance, recall. A good, strong recall was on every list. And this is me telling you, absolutely, that is a non-negotiable that every dog should do. But this is also me telling you that a recall is not just about training. It's not just about training it. In fact, I would say a recall, good recall, is based more on the relationship you have with your dog than it is what you trained your dog to do. Hear me out on this one. When you know that there is a reason, a reliance to come back home or to gravitate to whoever your partner is. If you know that my partner's going that way, why would I go that way? Because that is the opposite way of where my partner is going, and you had to choose which way to go. A good relationship, a strong relationship, a strong bond, you're going with that partner. Why on earth would you go the opposite way? Say, lost in the woods. Do you go with your guide or do you go it alone? Because I don't know. I want to see what is over that cliff. And even though my guide's leaving, whatever. I may or may not catch up with them. I'm gonna go check out what's over in the cliff. Do you do that? No, you do not. You do not. I'm answering for you. You do not. You go with your guide because you are relying on that guide for survival. Let's just put it where the goats can get it, right? Your very survival depends on going back to home base. You're a home base person. Well, why would you think dogs are any different than that? Now, dogs do have a lot of drives, and they do have a lot of things that are constantly pulling them to other things. And that is why you have to really, really work on that relationship. This is not to say you don't participate in training and repetitions and doing a lot of positive reinforcement. The positive reinforcement is to putting money in the bank. Every time your dog comes to you, they get rewarded for it. That's money in the bank. That's Premack principle, which I'll talk about in another post. I got so much stuff to share with you guys. So that is definitely helping improve the relationship. But the bottom line is, it is not so much the training as it is the relationship. Each of those are equally important for a dog to have a good recall. Now, here's where it gets tricky. So there are aversive tools that you can use for recalls. Absolutely. There are aversive tools. And they do work for a recall because discomfort and avoidance are very, very, very strong motivators as well. They aren't putting money in the tank. They're not putting money in the tank, as I said. However, in order to ignore it, if you ignore the discomfort, then that would very much be taking away from the tank for sure. And you know what? It's pretty reasonable that, okay, well, I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to go. But here's where it gets tricky, as I said. Once you remove that tool and you remove that presence of aversive, there also goes the training because the relationship has not been improved at all. That was not doing, aversive tools do nothing to improve the relationship. They just ensure compliance, absolutely, and they do work. But again, if the goal is to improve the relationship, then that's where it gets tricky. So, relationship, a good, rock solid, mutually respectful, mutually reliant relationship. That's number one. That is the number one thing you should work on with your dog. All that other stuff, sits and downs, just ridiculous. That'll come. That'll be easy, especially with positive reinforcement. Dogs will do that. Like, why wouldn't they? But that relationship, you don't even really have to train all that hard if you have a rock solid relationship. Case in point, have you ever seen dogs that belong to long distance truckers? And you know what? If I have any people who fit in these groups that are that happen to see this post, definitely please comment on this and tell me how much consistent training you have done with that dog. And the reason I mentioned long distance truckers specifically is because when I have watched them, like say at a road stop, a truck stop or whatever, when we're traveling, very often those dogs aren't even on leash. Very often they're not on leash. Those dogs are following them. Like, they don't run off. They like go and potty and then they get right back in the cab of the truck. You know? And no tools either. I don't see any tools on the dog. I don't see any leashes and collars. But what I do see is a relationship, a reliance on each other, a partnership. That dog relies on that person for their food, for everything that they need. They know that that person is their partner. Why would they go anywhere else? Why would they not stay with that person? Why would they run off? It just doesn't even make sense. Because if anything, animals know where their bread is buttered. They know this. They know what their survival depends on. That's one group. Another group. So I've so gotten into watching on YouTube videos about nomads. And you guys know what nomads are? These are people that live in vans and cars or like in little remote cabins in the woods. They're like off the grid. And they travel around. They travel from place to place. And many of them have dogs. And guess what? Same thing. The dog stays with them. The dog's not even thinking about running off. Like, why would they do that? And again, please, if there's anybody who fits into that category, please definitely comment on this video if you see it. Because I would venture to say they probably also have not participated in any type of formal, regimented dog obedience program. No. What they've done is they've built a relationship that is based on trust, mutual reliancy. And, that's the relationship. So, and the third category, I would say, is dogs that you often see with some unhoused people. Same thing. That dog is content to lay with that person in the same spot all day. Not once trying to get away from them. Not once. So this is what tells me that relationship is the most important thing when it comes to having a dog. And that is the one thing that everyday average pet owners are missing. They're missing that component. They really are. Because they're not putting stuff back in the tank. Hey, don't get me wrong. You guys are taking care of your dogs. You're feeding your dog. But you're not putting in special ingredients and making, regular payments to that bank in the same way, as I said, an old married couple doesn't work on the relationship. Now, I hope some of you will stick with me on this because my next post is going to be, how can you work on that relationship? What are the things you have to do? So let me go back to the original question. If I had to limit it to 3 things, the only 3 things that you really have to work on with your dog, number 1 is relationship. As a result of working on the relationship, the recall, your dog coming back to you when called. I would say that would be number 2. And number 3 is the dog moving along with you. You walk one direction, your dog follows you or walks next to you somewhere in the vicinity. They want to come where you're going. All right? And I'm telling you, those, number 1, the relationship, 2 and 3, the recall, and the dog moving along with you, those would follow. Those would follow. And I would venture to say that way back, centuries, when man first started developing a relationship with the canine, all right, when that first happened, it was the relationship, which was built on a reliancy. That ancient canine figured out, these humans have pretty cool stuff that's going to keep me alive. It behooves me to follow them and come to them when they call me. It behooves me to stick close with those human beings. That's where it all started. That is where it all started. How were they able to control those dogs? No tools, no leashes, no collars, just food to feed them, warmth. The humans built the fire. The canine could come and be around the fire. Do you think they didn't get cold? Of course they did. The humans had stuff they wanted, stuff that made their lives better. So it was pretty much a no-brainer on their part to stick very close to humans. And then you know what? I'm sure, one of the things, and certainly if anybody out, any of my followers, if you ever can find any photos or anything that depicts, as far back as you can, a human and an animal actually touching each other, and I know there are, or human and a canine actually touching each other, that'd be awesome to see because I know it happened. I know it happened. I believe that the human and canine love affair has been in the baking for centuries. It has. And so here we are today, and very often we're not even doing the basic thing that they did centuries ago. We forgot about all of that. So those are the three things, and I'm sticking with it. Now, all the other stuff are all good things to teach your dog. Do not get me wrong. The more you can teach them, the better. However, if you concentrate on the relationship, all those other things are going to become much easier to train your dog to do. I promise you that. I promise you that. So, thanks you guys for listening. Feel free to give me your comments. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Like I said, nomads, long distance truckers, you guys who fit into those categories, please see if, tell me I'm lying. Let me know if you participate in this phenomenal dog obedience program, or whether it's just something that happened because of the way your relationship is built with your dog. Let me know in the comment. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I promise to get that relationship video out very, very soon, so you can find, hey, I'm telling you the relationship is the most important thing. I feel like I owe it to you to tell you how to build that relationship with your dog. Listen, have a good day, everybody.